So what is self-reflection? Why is it important? And what do you need to know about it? Stay tuned and I'll let you know. Hello everybody, Well-Rounded Black Girl here, and this is, as you can tell from the title of this video, a video all about self-reflection. I'm just going to call it reflection from now on so that, you know, I get to be wordy, and taking out a word here or there will help, I promise. I talked a little bit in my intro video about reflection and why I think it's important, but I definitely wanted to kick off this this channel talking about this topic in particular. I am super excited that I'm launching in September because not only is September my birthday month, and actually the day this video comes out is my birthday, so happy birthday to me, but September is also self-improvement month, and I think self-reflection is at the complete foundation of self-improvement, and so I'm super excited to be talking about some of these topics here in the month of September. So once I decided to do a video on reflection, I did quite a bit of research and reading on the topic of reflection. I wanted to see what was out there. I know how I do it, and it was really great to be able to sit down and parse out my process, but I also wanted to see what other people were talking about. And so I definitely did a lot of research. I'm going to link a few articles down below where people are talking about, you know, the importance of self-reflection or what reflection means to them and why they do it. And I just wanted to be able to share as much information as possible. Now, of course, in this video, because I'm the one doing it, you're going to get my thoughts and my kind of process and my pitfalls and all of that, and hopefully something that you can relate to. And again, hopefully we can just all learn from one another. So before we talk about why reflection is important and how to do it and all of that good stuff, I just wanted to come up with a good working definition so that you all know what I mean when I say reflection. So I'm going to go ahead and put my definition of reflection up on the screen, and I'm going to read it out word for word for you. I typically don't do things like that because I'm like fairly certain that, you know, you can read what's on the screen, but I do want to kind of get that out there in my own voice. So, to me, self-reflection is the process of examining your thoughts, feelings, and actions in a way that will affect your future mindset. So, why is it important? Why is it important to reflect? Like I said, I read a lot, and people have various different reasons for why they reflect, how they reflect. But a few of those feelings resonated with me particularly strongly and were aligned with why I think it's important to be a reflective person or to take some time to reflect every now and then. So the three big reasons I think that reflection is important are that 1, it helps you to be able to see patterns. 2, it gives you a much deeper understanding of yourself. And 3, it allows you to live with a sense of intentionality. It allows you to be deliberate about your life. So briefly, seeing patterns, what does that mean? That means being able to understand your responses to different stimuli. We all have experiences that have shaped us as people, and we all have our triggers and then manifesting actions that come from those triggers. And sometimes that's you know, harmless. You hear your alarm clock, you wake up, hopefully. You know, that's a trigger, then that's a manifesting action, and that's how things go. But sometimes you can be in a situation and have a certain emotion and not really understand where that emotion came from. And if you don't take the time to reflect on it, you might be in a similar situation in the future and be even more out of touch and out of tune with your emotions. And that can lead to a lot of turmoil, I think, in your life. So I talked about this a little bit in my last video, but the second reason why reflection is super important, in my opinion, is that it allows you to have a deeper understanding of yourself. So this means that you understand your purpose, you understand your own motivations, and you understand how those things inform one another. You get why the patterns exist. So if you've seen the patterns and you understand where the patterns come from, now it's time for you to decide, 1, if those patterns serve you or not, and 2, if they don't, how to change them. Intentionality allows you to live with and live on purpose, and allows you to be able to react in ways that serve your purpose. It also allows you to kind of develop an action plan for breaking those negative patterns. So we've talked a little bit about why reflection is important. So now I want to go into how to reflect, because again, it doesn't come naturally to everyone. And because it does come naturally to me for the most part, it was a little bit difficult for me to sit down and say, okay, exactly how do we do this? How do I do this? How do other people do this? And so I just want to give you a few different ways that you can reflect and how you can add that into your everyday life or your every week life, every month life, whatever, however frequently rather, you're going to, take up the reflection mantle. So one area, and I think it's probably a really common area and something that you think about a lot when you hear reflection, is journaling. So I like to write, so I'll sit down and write out my thoughts. I've also in the past done a video journal where I'll sit down with my webcam and just talk for 20 or 25 minutes about things that have occurred to me, what's happening in my life, all of that great stuff. And what's good about that is that I can go back to those notes, or I can go back to those videos and say, okay, every time I had an interaction with this person, I left feeling this way. Or every time I was in this particular situation, my emotions were completely off the charts and I don't understand where that came from. And that allows me to say, okay, there's a pattern here. What is the pattern? What is triggering this response in me? Does that response serve my purpose? And if not, how can I get rid of that? How can I begin to break out of that pattern? Another way to reflect is another common way, and that's just with meditation. And meditation, that can mean just 5 minutes in a room by yourself. It can mean half an hour sitting crisscross applesauce on the floor while soft music is playing in the background. But the important thing about meditation is that you're clearing your mind and only allowing the thoughts that serve you in that process. So again, if it's 5 minutes, if you only have 5 minutes in your day, and it's the 5 minutes before, like you're in your car and you have to go to work, but you have 5 minutes in your car, sit by yourself in your car and take some time to think about what happened the previous day and how you want to let that inform how this day goes for you. Now, another way that reflection comes into play is when you're doing different activities, doing exercising or something like that. Now, I will say, I don't do as much of that as I should. I don't know if you can tell. I'm well-rounded in quite a few different ways, but I am working on that. Quick aside. Your girl is trying to be not so well-rounded, at least in that area. But again, just any type of movement. Most of the time when you're exercising, you may be walking, you may be running, you may be swimming, you may be biking, you may be hiking. A lot of those times, except for maybe hiking and walking, you're doing that by yourself. Or even if you're with other people, it's not like a hugely social activity. You're not going to be gabbing as you go along. You can have some time inside your own head with your own thoughts. And whether you're in nature, whether you're in a swimming pool, whatever, whether you're in the gym, but you have your headphones in and you can just kind of zone out and really pay attention to yourself. All of those are areas where a lot of people have a lot of great success doing some reflection. That might be the only time you have in your day to do some reflection. And so using those times wisely is super important. Now, I did just talk about how, you need to get into your own head and all of that. I'm an introvert, and so those are the types of things that come naturally to me. But if you're an extrovert, or if you're a super social introvert, because those do exist, and I will be doing a video on introversion sometime in the future, and you just like to talk to people, talk to friends. Get you some people in your life that care about you and will help you to confront the things that you are trying not to confront. So whether that's talking to friends, whether that's finding a therapist, or finding a great life coach, all of those things can be super helpful in allowing you to reflect on whatever area in your life you feel needs that attention. Along with that, you can do some of this on your own and just find some guided questions. I actually found a really good article online that has some great guiding questions as different things you can ask yourself to reflect, because sometimes people just sit and say, I don't know how to reflect, I don't know what that means, so you're telling me to sit in my car for 5 minutes by myself. I don't know what I'm supposed to be thinking about. So having some guided questions may help you to structure your reflection in a way that's beneficial to you. So I have linked that below, and hopefully some of those questions, there's a lot of them, there are a lot of them I should say, but hopefully some or all of them are helpful to you in your reflection journey. And a few other activities you can do to reflect. You can color, you can doodle, something that's kind of mindless and routine, but that is active in case you don't just kind of want to sit around. You can take a drive. I know sometimes when I have a lot on my mind, I'll just get in my car and go for a drive. Now, that's not always feasible, so maybe you can't drive, maybe you don't have a car, maybe, whatever. But if you do have that and have that as an opportunity, that's something that you can do. Or you can take a shower. Most of the time when we're showering, we're alone and with our own thoughts. And most people know not to come and bother us during that time. So if you find yourself saying, I don't have any time during the day, I don't have a moment to myself, hopefully that moment when you're showering, even if it's a quick 5-minute shower, you can just not take some time off from thinking about, oh my gosh, I have to do this, and this, after the shower. Give yourself 5 minutes to just really reflect on whatever area you are trying to target. So when are some good times to reflect? I honestly, again, I live in my head most of the time, and that can be a pitfall, and I'm going to get to pitfall and things to avoid soon. And so I reflect all the time, I feel like. But there are a few times where I think it is particularly important to sit down and really assess the situation as it is. So this is something that is unique. It's not unique to me, but it's something that works for me and may not work for you. But I have a morning meeting with myself, and I do fall off every now and then. Again, I'm not perfect, but I try to have a morning meeting with myself every morning where I sit down and say, okay, what do I have to do today? That's kind of like a forward thinking, not necessarily reflection. But now that I know what I have to do for the day, is there something in my past? Is there something in this past week or past month or year or whatever that's going to help me to achieve that goal? How did I do this in the past? How can I better this in the future? Another time that I think it's really important to sit and reflect is after any kind of big confrontation or emotional shift. So you might have a confrontation with a friend or a partner or a boss or a colleague, and after that, I think it's important, after you've calmed down and you aren't kind of in the thick of that emotion anymore, it's great to sit down and say, okay, what was that confrontation? Could it have been avoided? And if not, how could it have gone better? Because I fully believe that sometimes confrontation is important. Confrontation has a really bad connotation, but it has to happen every now and then. Sometimes people don't align, and the only way to get to that compromise or get to that place of alignment is to have that confrontation. It doesn't have to be a big blowout, but I do think that after a confrontation or after some kind of big emotional shift, if you've noticed that I was really happy, 2 hours ago, and now for some reason I'm just super sad. When you notice things like that, that's a great time to sit down and really assess what's going on inside your own head. And lastly, after any kind of big project, so whether that's a project at work, whether it's something you've been working on, in your personal time, whether it's a book you're trying to write or a song you're trying to compose, after you've completed that process, I think it's great to sit down and just kind of debrief with yourself. Think about, how did that go? Am I proud of what came out of that? If I'm not, how can I be more proud of, something coming out of this in the future? Is there a way that I can modify this particular thing so that I am proud? Basically, just sitting down and taking stock of where you are with that project and how, if you're going to do something similar in the future, you can make it better. Because just because something is good doesn't mean that it can't get better. And if something goes poorly, you don't have to just sit there in that. You can decide to make it go better the next time. So again, like I said, I'm going to talk now a little bit about some of the pitfalls of maybe excessive reflection and things that you might want to avoid when you are on your reflection journey. So the first I talked about a little bit, and that is just staying inside your own head. I live in my head. I'm in there a lot. I know how I feel about a lot of different things. And it's easy to kind of sit and say, I'm reflecting, I'm thinking about how that went and how I don't want it to go that way in the future, or how to make this even better. But I want to be very clear. And it's something that I had to learn, and I learned it the hard way. And it might seem like a hard pill to swallow. You cannot stay in your head after reflecting. Thinking about and understanding your problems those two things do not absolve you of the responsibility of a corresponding action. I see a lot of times where people will say, prime example, I'm an impatient person, right? Sometimes I just lack patience, and it's not for lack of trying, and it just happens, right? And I can reflect on that, and I can say, in this situation, I was super impatient. And understanding that does not absolve me of then trying to be a more patient person with that situation or with that person in the future. It's not enough most of the time. And I don't want to tell you how to live your life, but in my opinion, it's not enough to just know that about yourself. I see so many grown people saying, well, I'm just impatient and that's just it. That's who I am. As though we are not changeable beings. You have the complete power to change things, especially things about yourself. Things that have nothing to do with your surroundings, or they might be triggered by your surroundings, but they're not caused by your surroundings. And there's a difference. And so I think it's really important that we don't stay inside of our own heads when we are reflecting, and that we actually come up with an appropriate course of action to address whatever it is that we're reflecting about. Not every single thing that you reflect on is going to require some action. But if it does, you need to then pick up that mantle and do that action. Another huge pitfall, or something that you want to avoid when reflecting, is beating yourself up. I've done this so much, and it's not helpful. What you want to do when you're reflecting is to be honest with yourself, but not overly critical. You can be critical, but being overly critical is not going to help you. Because especially then if you're also staying inside your own head, all you're doing is beating yourself up, and you're not coming up with ways to make it better in the future. And that can definitely be detrimental in the future, because when you see a similar situation coming, you might freeze up, you might want to run away from it, and you will probably have a corresponding action that does not serve your purpose at all, because you haven't taken the time to sit down and reflect and to think about how that could have gone better in the future. Why did that happen in the past? Why did this emotional shift happen? All of that great stuff. You haven't reflected on that. So when the new situation comes that's similar to the old situation, you're in the same boat, and you're going to beat yourself up again. Because why didn't I learn? You didn't learn because you didn't reflect on it. It's completely possible to take responsibility for your actions without self-flagellation. You do not have to beat yourself over the head. Even if, your action led to something horrible. Maybe you hurt a friend or sibling or partner. And taking responsibility for that does not mean that you just, all of a sudden keep telling yourself that you're an awful person. No. It means that you take responsibility, you apologize, and you find a way to move forward. The best apology is change actions. That's just it. Another thing to avoid when reflecting is expecting immediate change. Most of the time, these patterns that we've built for ourselves, when this video comes out, I'm 32. I'm 32 years old. Some of these patterns I've had, and they come from experience that I've had when I was a kid, when I was 5. So, you have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years of the same pattern over and over. You're not going to break that pattern by reflecting for 5 minutes. What is going to help break that pattern is consistent reflection and holding yourself accountable to coming up with a plan as to how to get yourself out of that pattern. You cannot expect immediate results, or you will continue to beat yourself up, and you will continue to find yourself in these situations that don't serve your purpose. You cannot move forward that way. I think this is one of the places where a lot of very busy people, or people who are not naturally reflective, get stuck, because it seems like the return on investment is very low. What really is the case is that the return on investment is a long-term return and not a short-term return. It's going to take time. Again, if you've been doing the same, if you've been reacting to a certain situation for the same way for 20 years, even a month of, consistent reflection might not completely break that pattern. You have to be patient with yourself, and you have to understand that your return on investment, this is a long-term investment in yourself. It's not a short-term fix. And the last thing that I want to talk about of what to avoid in terms of reflection is being blind to your faults because you're really good at reflection. Now, this has happened to me too. Again, I live in my head. Most of the time, you can't tell me something about myself that I don't already know because I've dissected these situations. I've dissected my responses. I've thought about how I want this to go differently in the future. You can't tell me. Now, that's not really a positive attitude to have. Somebody might come to you and say, I was really hurt when you did this thing. And I think you should, think about the way that impacts other people. Someone who's really good at reflection might completely blow off that feedback because, I reflect all the time. I know all of my flaws. But there are blind spots. And the more you reflect, sometimes the narrower your focus becomes because you're looking for a certain result. And that's fine. But that means that there's a whole lot of gray area. There's a whole lot of space around where you've narrowed down that you might not be paying attention to. Now, that's not to say that every piece of feedback you get is valid and that you must take it to heart, but you should at least examine it and see if indeed you have missed something along the way. So just some general final thoughts on reflection. I've seen a lot of pros and cons when it comes to reflection, but for me, the pros far outweigh the cons. I have been stuck in blaming myself for situations where I'm not seeming to learn and just staying in my head and berating myself. But I have also been able to talk myself down out of some truly horrible emotions and feelings because I know at my core who I am and what my purpose is and what my motivations are. And I know that even if I did something that resulted in, hurting someone or any kind of other negative consequence, that I can get myself out of it because at my core, who I am is a person that wants the best for myself and for everybody around me. I am still very much a work in progress, y'all. Like I said, I'm super impatient, and I've known that about myself for years, and I backtrack a lot, but I also feel like I'm a better person. I'm a more patient person than I was 5 years ago because I'm consistently working on it. Am I the most patient person? Am I where I want to be? No. But that's okay because I'm getting there. I'm actively working towards that. And I'm not going to beat myself up for where I am. What I'm going to do is look back and see how far I've come and look to see how far I have to go and use that as motivation to get to that place. So if this isn't your thing, if you feel like reflection isn't for you, I urge you to try it for a month anyway. Check out those resources that I have linked below if you want some help or support, or feel free to come back and rewatch this video. Hit me up on Instagram or on, Twitter. or down below in the comments, and I'm happy to talk about it. I am not, again, an expert. What I am is somebody who is trying to be a life coach in the future. I've done some coaching in the past, and definitely want to pick up that mantle a little bit more in the future. And so while I'm not going to sit and have full-on coaching sessions with people, because that costs money, y'all, I'll do it if you want to pay me, but I'm definitely here to help and talk to you about, a certain topic, or a piece of your life where you feel like this isn't helping you, and maybe help you to work through that a little bit. And hopefully other people in the comments or on social media, or even in your own life, this doesn't have to be centered around me. It needs to be centered around you. So hopefully you can find that somewhere, but I definitely urge you to try it for a month and to try to do it consistently and see what benefit comes from that in the future. So if this resonated with you at all, if it helped, if it gave you something to think about, gave you a starting off point, definitely give me a like. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel, because I'll be doing a little bit more like this. And definitely leave me a comment. Like I was saying just a little bit ago, leave me a comment. Come find me on my social media, because I would love to hear from you about what's working for you and what's not. And hopefully I can come up with content from the comments. I would love to be responsive in that way. I do have my, next few videos planned out because that's the only way I'm going to be able to be consistent with this. But as I'm planning the next quarter of things, I can definitely look through the comments and see, people really want to hear about this. Maybe I should do a video on that. So I would love to hear from you. I would love to, see you all conversing in the comments about whatever it is that you want to be talking about. Hopefully, related to reflection, but really just helping one another out. Well, I can't wait to see you down in the comments. I can't wait to see you on social media. And I am going to go ahead and cut this off because it is a fairly long video. Thank you so much for being here. And please, 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 I hope to see you in the next video next Thursday. Bye.